The Golden Arches are the most widely recognized symbol in the world. The logo of fast food corporation McDonald's can be observed in many nations throughout the globe, and they guarantee a certain experience no matter where you happen to find one. Cheap, fast, high-calorie food, burgers, corporate accountability, this is the deal. You know what you are in for at a McDonald's. In 1996, economist Thomas Friedman coined the term the Golden Arches theory of conflict prevention in his book The Lexus and the Olive Tree. This theory postulates that if any two nations have stable enough economies, prosperous enough to contain a middle class wealthy enough to support a McDonald's franchise, those two nations will not risk going to war with one another. When he wrote this, he was being a bit tongue-in-cheek, but the principle itself is actually relatively sound. While there are those who've tried to debunk this claim by pointing out armed conflicts between nations with McDonald's franchises, these are somewhat dubious, and their legitimacy largely depends on what you would classify as a war. For example, the 1998 Kosovo War between the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and the Kosovo Liberation Army. That featured Yugoslavia, a country with a McDonald's franchise. However, this essentially amounted to a civil war that was later interfered with by other McDonald's having powers like the United States of America, and as such it is hard to classify it specifically as a war between such powers. However, the theory itself, that economic prosperity, participation in the global supply chain, and easy access to tasty, high-calorie fast food results in a population with much to lose, and therefore an opposition to potentially risky warfare is, in fact, highly solid. What can we learn from this, therefore? People who can go to Mackey's don't want to go to war. They want a Big Mac. Mackey's doesn't want to build restaurants in countries likely to be torn apart by war and, as a result, lose their investment. Stable economies make peaceful people, and peaceful people make economies more stable, not wanting to rock the boat and risk losing their access to cheap and tasty burgers alongside the rest of their bread and circuses. This yields more growth as stable economies allow for additional investment, and therefore more for the people to lose should armed conflict come to their peaceful country. So, if you seek peace, prosperity is key, which means free markets, strong property rights, and international trade. This is also true for morality in general, as is explained by the phrase the widening of the circle of moral consideration, which I explored in an earlier video. Having greater access to resources, more property, food, etc., results in survival being less uncertain, comfort being more attractive, and necessity becoming inevitable rather than something to fight tooth and nail for. People's circle of moral consideration expands from simply themselves in the more dire economic circumstances to include family, friends, people of the same race, nationality, religion, etc., as economic stability increases. Once you are no longer wondering where your next meal will come from, you have the opportunity to care about your fellow man, and the circle can expand even further. Hence why in the modern developed West there are now many who include animals within that circle. In times of economic hardship, these same souls who now profess to be vegan would likely happily slaughter and consume animals themselves to fend off starvation. Rather ironic, really. The recent significant increase in both veganism and anti-capitalism have only come about as a direct result of the success of both consumer capitalism and our high-protein diets, courtesy of companies like McDonald's, and the stability of Western nations as a result of our advanced economies. What then does this teach us? Many of the great moral advancements of humanity's history have come about either as a direct or indirect result of economic prosperity. For example, the ending of slavery, which for the most part had become commonplace throughout the globe, came only after the invention of labor-saving devices, which made slavery less profitable. If you want happy, moral, peaceful people who are kind to others, your best bet is a free market. Innovation, prosperity, and peace. This is the libertarian worldview. Now go eat a Big Mac.